Hello everyone. We're excited to present our work, comparing sentence-level suggestions to message-level suggestions in AI-mediated communication. In the past, writing assistance systems have focused on short or even single-word suggestions. Recently, large language models like GPT-3 have made it possible to generate significantly longer, natural-sounding suggestions. These systems have the potential to offer more advanced assistance to people for their communication tasks, particularly in situations where the volume of correspondence is too large for humans to manage. We consider a practical example of such a situation, namely staffers from legislators' offices responding to vast amounts of constituents' concerns. In these situations, a small number of staffers have to handle large amounts of correspondence from constituents, making intelligent assistance especially needed. At the same time, the high-stakes nature of political communication calls for careful and comprehensive research into the potential benefits and risks of any technical assistance that may be introduced into the political process. In the rest of this talk, we'll first explain the design of our experiment platform offering different assistance options, and then we'll go into details about how different types of suggestions are used and perceived both from the writer's and the reader's perspective. The generative capabilities of current models enable a wide range of possibilities for designing assistance systems. In this work, we explore two design options, namely sentence-level suggestions and message-level suggestions. Sentence-level suggestions tend to focus on a specific point. They can be offered throughout the drafting process as need arise and can be accepted or rejected in place. Message-level suggestions offer complete drafts from scratch, which users can then discard or further edit on. We built a platform, Dispatch, to simulate the scenario of staffers from legislative offices responding to constituents' concerns, and created two versions, one offering sentence-level suggestions, while the other offering message-level suggestions. The basic interface is shown here. On the left, users see the email message to respond to. On the right, an editor is provided for drafting the response. The editor supports all typical actions for writing, for example, typing, deleting, and cursor movements. We support two types of sentence-level suggestions. Continuation suggestions can be triggered by typing the @ key, which bring out a drop-down menu offering 5 options to continue on the current draft. Users can also get a sentence-level response responding to a specific point in the email by highlighting the content first, and then prompt the sentence-level response suggestion. In the message-level version, there's a Generate button under the email text. When clicked, the text box on the right is populated with a suggestion. This suggestion can then be edited before submitting. We first explore the impact of each type of suggestions on the user's writing experience. We recruited 120 participants from Prolific to act as staffers from legislators' offices to respond to 3 emails. They were randomly assigned to one of the 3 conditions. We sample open letters delivered to elected officials via the open letter bot as proxies for constituents' emails, and use GPT-3 to generate suggestions. In general, we find that suggestions are often incorporated into the eventual responses. On average, users receiving message-level suggestions ended up contributing less than a quarter of the final responses, and users in the sentence-level suggestions condition contributed to close to half, with the rest of the response text coming directly from suggestions. This difference in contribution is echoed in the post-experiment survey. While participants in the sentence-level suggestions condition perceived that they retain substantial agency, participants who received message-level suggestions tended to think that they played a lesser role in drafting responses. In terms of completion time, participants receiving message-level suggestions were able to finish their responses significantly faster, demonstrating an increased level of efficiency in responding. In comparison, participants receiving sentence-level assistance took longer since they still had to plan for the key points to cover in their responses while deciding where to trigger and use suggestions. For more analysis and details, please refer to our paper. Next, we look into the effect of the different suggestion types on the reader's perception of the helpfulness of the messages. To gauge reader perceptions, we again recruited participants on Prolific to read response written under different conditions and asked the readers to rate to what extent they agreed or disagreed with the statement. The reply was helpful and useful on a 5-point Likert scale. We found that the replies written with message-level suggestions were significantly more highly rated than all others. All suggestion types were rated as more helpful and useful than the generic auto-reply. The disclosure of AI use consistently decreased the ratings, though not significantly. In this work, we explore the effects of sentence-level versus message-level suggestions in assisting users in email communication. We observe that these two forms of suggestions we test tend to lead to substantially different writing processes. As different communication circumstances have different objectives and demands, for instance, efficiency may be at the core of customer services communications, whereas developing trust and credibility is critical for legislator-constituent communication. It is important to better understand the needs and specifications of the particular communication circumstance to design task-appropriate assistance systems. Observations from our experiments indicate that care must be taken for introducing and disclosing the use of such systems to people on both ends of the communication process to avoid tension and mistrust. While we observe trade-offs in our study as generation models become better and more design options are explored, it may be possible to design communication assistance systems that are both highly automated while also giving users a high level of control. Thank you.